Starbucks has been one of the leaders in the coffee industry since its inception in 1971, when it was founded by Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Baker while they were students at the University of San Francisco. Within the same year, they opened their first store in Seattle, Washington at the city's historic Pike Place Market, which is still operational today. In 1987, the original trio of Starbucks owners sold their business to Howard Schultz, who had previously worked for the company as a manager for several years, for $3.8 million. Several years later, in 1992, Starbucks had 165 stores and brought their company public. Their initial public offering sold 12% of their company for $25 million after being valued at $271 million. The company has now grown to have over 290,000 employees and over 31,000 stores nationwide, with 52% of their stores being company-owned, accounting for 80% of total revenue. Starbucks has a yearly net revenue of over $20 million since 2016. This has been done under current leaders of Chairman Myron Ullman, Vice Chairman Melody Hobson, CEO and President Kevin Johnson, and Howard Schultz serving as Chairman Emeritus after serving as the CEO from 1986 to 2000, and then again from 2008 to 2017. Starbucks has a major advantage over its competition, with its two biggest competitors being McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. This is extremely evident with their market share of the coffee industry being slightly over 39%. They have been able to achieve this by offering a wide range of products, a higher quality product, a better store atmosphere, and overall better customer experience than their competition. They have over 30 different coffee offerings, which is significantly more than Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's. 74% of all of their sales come from their numerous beverages, with 50% of all of their sales stemming from the cold beverages such as teas, energy drinks, and cold brews. Starbucks also offers a wide range of breakfast foods that account for 20% of their total sales. Mainly, the biggest difference between Starbucks and their competition is the higher quality of food and their numerous product offerings.
Starbucks competes in the food and beverage retail industry. Some of their main competitors are Dunkin', McDonald's, Tim Hortons, a lot of your small mom and pop coffee companies, and store-bought coffee brands such as Folgers and Maxwell House. Starbucks has been pretty expansionary. They have over 24,000 locations, and they compete in 75 geographic markets. So Starbucks' product diversification strategy is mainly product-related diversification. As you look at their subsidiaries that they've acquired over time, such as Teavana, Seattle's Best Coffee, Evolution Fresh, which is a fruit and juice beverage company, Ethos Water, and Terra Fazione Italia Coffee. All of these companies that Starbucks has acquired deal with hot and cold beverage products, as Starbucks has a pretty good knowledge of those product offerings. One caveat to the subsidiaries is that Starbucks, we know for their brick and mortars, but you can find a lot of their product offerings for coffee in your major grocers or wholesale retail shops. So if you were to go to your local Giant Eagle, you'd not only notice Starbucks product offerings on the shelves, but you'd also notice Seattle's Best Coffee, which is a lower cost alternative to the Starbucks premium price. So in order to evaluate this industry, I'd like to cover Porter's 5 forces. The first force that I'm going to cover are entry barriers or threat of new entrants. The entry barriers for this industry are low to moderate. The food and beverage industry, but more specifically for hot and cold beverage retail chains that are coffee-based, they compete in a market that's really not that difficult to break into compared to like specialized industries such as oil companies. Many local companies are able to open small coffee shops or even small local chains without facing large upfront capital investments or facing government restrictions or any other market barriers that you'd find in specialized industries. There's also no cost for customers to switch over to another coffee shop, which helps out those small local companies when they are opening their doors. And while some of these small local companies are able to open up and stay in business, most are usually eventually pushed out by large corporate coffee companies such as Starbucks or Dunkin'. The second force I want to cover is threat of substitutes, which in this industry is moderate for them. Without the acquisition of Teavana, Ethos, and Evolution Fresh, I would say the threat of substitutes would probably be higher for Starbucks. However, they now compete in a lot of the major hot and cold beverage product industries, so the threat is now reduced. Starbucks does face some competition from the likes of convenience stores or grocers, amongst others, because those places, they sell substitutes such as soda, energy drinks, and sports drinks. The third force I want to cover is bargaining power of buyers. So if any of you are like me who are coffee junkies, you know that there's a high demand for coffee-related products, which in turn forces the bargaining power of buyers to be pretty much low to moderate due to the amount of demand there is for these products by consumers. The fourth force that I'm going to cover is the bargaining power of suppliers, which is pretty much moderate. The main regions that are used for growing and harvesting coffee beans are in Asia Pacific, Africa, and Latin America. Starbucks' main supplier, though, is the Fairtrade Coffee Company. There are pretty large amount of harvesters for coffee beans, and coffee bean supply seems to be pretty stable. So that's sort of why I deemed this force to be moderate. There also isn't much of a cost to switch suppliers because of how many there are, for one reason. Starbucks is also the major player in this industry with approximately 40% market share. So they have a pretty extensive bargaining power that they can impose. They also have a partnership called the Coffee and Partner Equity Program, which assists coffee bean farmers in many ways, and you can find out more about that on their website, but that also helps their ability to bargain with their suppliers. The fifth and final force is competition in this industry, which is high. Starbucks holds 40% of the market share in the United States, but they face heavy competition from obviously competitors such as Dunkin', Tim Hortons, and McDonald's. Customers don't face costs to switch from one firm to the next in this industry, and Starbucks generally imposes a premium pricing strategy, but throughout the year they offer various promotions and discounts, especially during the holidays and sometimes just on random occasions. They're typically higher in price when you compare them to their main competitors. The final industry topic that I want to cover is going to deal with commodities, but more specifically dealing with coffee, as that's the main raw material that goes into Starbucks product offerings. And it also determines a lot of Starbucks pricing and ability to offer promotional deals. So the price of coffee in mid-November of 2019, it was pretty low, but as the year went on, it steadily increased until it peaked in around mid-December last year. As of March this year, 2020, the price of coffee sort of spiked upward. I don't know how much the pandemic has to do with that, but it's since been on a slow decline and currently sits on a price of $1.17 per pound.
Next, we performed a SWOT analysis on Starbucks and looked at its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. As you can see, Starbucks has lots of strengths or internal factors, such as store growth, acquisitions, diversification, awareness, brand image, and financial performance. Starting with its brand image, Starbucks has a very strong brand image. From the Starbucks logo to the goodwill of the name, everyone knows what the Starbucks logo is. Per 2019 ranking, Starbucks has an estimated brand value over $11.7 billion. Looking at its financial performance, Starbucks, due to its various acquisitions and expansions, Starbucks has a strong financial presence in the food and beverage industry and continues to grow throughout the years. For the past 4 years, Starbucks has had a consistent revenue growth pattern with an average growth rate of about 7.56%. Starbucks has seen a lot of growth in its stores. Between the years of 1998 through 2019, the number of stores has increased from 1,886 to over 31,000 stores. Starbucks store growth is not just in the United States, but it has grown globally, opening many stores in places like China and Africa as well. As previously mentioned, Starbucks has acquired many of its subsidiaries. Companies like Seattle's Best Coffee, Teavana, Tazo, Evolution Fresh, Ethos Water, and Italia Coffee, giving it a competitive advantage as well as market growth in the food and beverage industry. The aforementioned acquisitions also help to diversify Starbucks' portfolio and offerings, offering things like food and lunch options, as well as different water and options for drinks that are pre-made. Starbucks also has great awareness on how it treats its employees and what it offers to its customers. It offers things to its employees such as help with school, and it offers things to its customers such as app rewards or birthday treats, free treats for using the app, things like that, all which help Starbucks' goodwill and its brand image. Next, we'll look at Starbucks' weaknesses. As you can see, the internal factors or weaknesses that Starbucks has, there are not many. However, the two that they do have do offer them quite a disadvantage. One of the big issues that Starbucks has, or one of the big weaknesses, is its high prices compared to its competitors. For example, my personal usual drink at Starbucks is $4.55 for a medium, while my large drink at Dunkin' Donuts is only $2.45. So on the days that I want to save money, I'm more likely to go to Dunkin' Donuts than I am to go to Starbucks. In addition to its high pricing, Starbucks also has very general products, a very general product offering line, meaning that they're highly imitable, making their corner on the market almost non-existent. Starbucks heavily relies on its brand image and goodwill and its repeat customers to help grow its brand. Next, we'll look at Starbucks' opportunities, or the external factors that it has. Some of the examples of the opportunities that Starbucks has are expansion, new products, partnerships, and recently the COVID-19 pandemic. We'll look at expansion first. Starbucks has expanded globally, opening stores, as mentioned earlier, in countries such as China and Africa to increase their global footprint. They attempt to tailor their menu to each culture in which they open, which helps them with their brand image and awareness as well. In addition to expanding, they also offer new products. They try to cater its menu to each culture when it opens a store. With help of their acquisitions, they're able to tap into emerging markets for growth. I was actually rather surprised when I was recently in China visiting for work. I went to a Starbucks and the menu was completely different than what it is here. They have a lot more matcha and things like that on the menu that are more tailored towards the China market that we don't typically see here in the U.S. market. Again, going back to the partnerships and acquisitions that Starbucks has previously made, it helps to instill growth in the company. They co-brand with others to help strengthen its market presence by offering different products. And I've also listed COVID-19 as a potential opportunity for Starbucks. I realize that this is also a threat, but it could be a potential opportunity as well. Because of the global pandemic, Starbucks is using this time to show the type of company that it is, which will hopefully grow its goodwill. Some of the steps that Starbucks has taken to help answer the COVID-19 pandemic are hopefully things that customers see and appreciate. Some of the things that they have done are temporarily closing cafes and moving to drive-through and delivery services. They support first responders and healthcare professionals by keeping the Starbucks cafes that are in or around hospital and health centers open to help serve the first responders. They have implemented extra cleaning protocols and precautions and safety precautions. And they have also delayed the expiration of any Starbucks rewards between now and June 1st to help keep its customers happy. In addition, Starbucks is making sure to still take care of its employees. They're offering catastrophe pay, where they're offering to pay their employees through May. They're offering service pay. They're offering hardship grants, impacts of store closures, mental health, child care, all to make sure that their employees are taken care of in this time. Moving to its threat or its external factors. Some of these overlap with some of the other factors that we've previously talked about, but we'll go into more detail as to how these are also external factors. Starting with COVID-19, Starbucks has closed the vast majority of stores, those without drive-thrus and some with drive-thrus to help limit the spread of the COVID-19, which will hurt their financials going forward. Additionally, the offerings that they're offering to their employees, such as catastrophe pay and things like that, will also take a hit to their financials. Another threat is the competition. Starbucks has many lower price competitors such as Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's that are offering similar products to Starbucks but at a much lower price. That also goes towards general products. Starbucks has very generalized products that are very imitable, making their product line easy for reproducing, making competitors more likely to develop similar products. Another issue that Starbucks has endured is some bad press in recent years. One instance is in 2018 when 2 African-American men were arrested inside of a Starbucks. The incident happened in Philadelphia after the Starbucks staff called the police to report that the 2 men refused to leave. They hadn't ordered anything and were reportedly waiting for a business associate to arrive. The staff called 911 because Starbucks does not allow non-paying people from the public to come in and use the restroom, is what the police commissioner told the newspaper. The employee said that the men were trespassing and had refused to leave the restaurant. After such incident had happened, the Starbucks CEO issued an apology, and they actually closed the store for training shortly after. All Starbucks stores, not just the store that this incident took place in, but all Starbucks stores, to go over the policies and training to make sure that this incident did not happen again. This was a big deal for Starbucks for them to do this training because part of their goodwill and part of their brand image is being that place where people can go to hang out and just kind of be and relax. I know myself personally in law school, that is where I went to study for the bar, and I spent all day, every day at Starbucks. They actually offer free refills on coffee, regular coffee and teas, if you stay there during the day. So the fact that this incident happened kind of hurt their brand image. And so this was something that they wanted to fix because they do have that reputation of being somewhere to just hang out. So Starbucks closed their stores to hold this training to not only fix the wrong that happened, but also to help repair their brand image and the hit that it took because of this instance. So they took steps to help prevent it happening again in the future. So as you can see, Starbucks does have some weaknesses and some threats that it does have to go against, but they do have a lot more strengths and opportunities to work off of.
Okay, so now we're going to get into some research and development information for Starbucks. Here I've got a timeline of some major Starbucks milestones that resulted from projects within the company that were completed. Many of these projects usually come together as a result of market research typically done by the R&D group. So, like I said, I have a timeline here. I'm going to highlight some of the more bigger developments that resulted in a lot of success for Starbucks. Starting with 1971, that's when Starbucks really opened their first store in Seattle, and this was a result of one of their executives actually going to Italy for vacation and seeing kind of the cafe culture there and wanting to bring it back to America. And then in 1990, they went ahead and expanded their headquarters in Seattle, and they created their mission statement, and they opened 84 total new stores. So obviously this was as a result of, R&D market research really saying, okay, it's time for us to expand and go ahead and start opening a bunch of stores. And then in 1998, they decided to extend the brand into grocery, which is a big movement if you think about diversifying kind of the market and the presence that your product is in. And they found a lot of success from that. And then you can see they're acquiring some companies here throughout the timeline. They're opening stores in different countries, right? So that's cultural, that's, physical diversifying as well as product diversifying. And then in 2014, a big movement there was launching the iPhone app. Really, this drove the whole idea behind like a loyalty customer and kept customers coming back. And we'll talk about some of that a little bit later and some of what the success for that looks like. And then in 2015, they launched, cold brew smoothies, and they've been continuing to make progress since then. Things like introducing new products, new drinks. Those are things that customers always look forward to, and they're a big part of the efforts of R&D. Okay, so here you can visually see the growth of the company in terms of revenue dollars year over year. You can see for the past 4 years, Starbucks has had a pretty consistent revenue growth pattern. They're at about 7.5% each year, with 2019 obviously being the highest and most recent. So this basically just highlights how Starbucks, kind of can gauge that they're on the right path here, and a lot of their ventures that come as a result of, research from R&D are going pretty well. So continuing the successful thoughts, continuing the new kind of ideas that they have in, growth strategies and diversifying would be a good indicator for Starbucks, just because you can see their year-over-year consistent growth. Okay, and I did want to highlight a couple of noteworthy developments that came as a result of Starbucks R&D research and industry research. So we had talked earlier about the iPhone app that they came out with in 2014, and this was really as a result of researching the big boom behind loyalty programs and really the ROI that could be achieved from launching something like that. So, they launched it in 2014, and by 2018, we had statistics that showed 23.4 million people above age 14 are going to use the app to make a purchase. So that's a huge deal. And it's an even bigger deal if we kind of look at the users that are really getting on Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, and seeing that the Starbucks app is actually surpassing the usage of those very popular applications. And then you can see another thing is that in 2019, the company's rewards program, they saw their members jump 14% year over year, which is a ridiculous amount of growth when you think about, members joining a program just like a loyalty app. But the biggest thing here is like Starbucks makes it really seamless, right? So they've integrated the ability to pay on there. They've integrated, the idea behind racking up points to get free drinks. And this is really something that creates a sense of loyalty to the brand from the customer perspective. So that was a good investment from an R&D perspective for Starbucks. And then just a couple of noteworthy stores to call out from Starbucks. They, are all over the world at this point, totaling about 30,000 stores currently. And you can see here that they exist in New York, Milan, Tokyo. They're in Indonesia, they're in Texas, they're in China, they're all over the place. So really one of the biggest things that they celebrated recently was opening their 30,000th store in China, and they do have intention to continue opening stores, namely in China and in some of the European countries as well. Obviously, since they've seen it take off quite a bit throughout the world. So what's coming for Starbucks within the R&D world? Well, obviously we talked about a little bit of international expansion. They've seen and monitored how the opening of their stores internationally has gone and, brought them crazy success. So they do continue to open stores almost to the frequency where they're opening one every 15 hours, which is insane. And then they do plan to leverage their digital app success. What they're doing now, especially as a result of the COVID-19 situation, is, already consumer goods have been going in the direction of delivery and kind of the convenience, right? So this is really a catalyst to push them in that direction. So, Starbucks did come out and say that when they reopen their stores, a lot of them are going to have a contactless pickup area as well as delivery, which is going to be huge for the company. So they are looking in that direction. Automation is another area. The thing about Starbucks is they pride themselves on their competitive differentiation in terms of being unique. So what they do is they make, their coffee very customized, very handmade, and they don't want to get away from that. But one piece of their kind of chain that they can automate is the inventory and the collection side. So that's kind of, them saying, okay, all the way from sourcing my ingredients to making sure that my shelves are stocked, to making sure that my distribution centers are stocked, and making sure that each retail store has what they need. That process can be highly automated, which can result in a lot of efficiencies for them. So they're working on that. And then a possible change in business model. So recently, one of Starbucks' competitors, Panera, now they're not, a premium coffee competitor by any means, but they do provide coffee. And Panera's starting to try out a different business model, which they call the subscription model. So Panera's offering their customers, unlimited coffee for a set amount of money a month. And while that doesn't sound entirely too threatening right now to Starbucks, it could ultimately turn out to be that way. So Starbucks is considering, adopting a model like that. I don't think that they will anytime soon, especially since they pride themselves on their premium coffee. But this could turn into something like, charging a very high amount for maybe a limited amount of coffee, maybe 10 coffees a month or whatever, ultimately resulting in the end user saving about maybe $5 to $10 versus if they had just bought a new coffee every time that they visited. So that's another thing in the chain for Starbucks. And that's kind of a summary of what's coming for them next. Okay, so future strategy recommendations for Starbucks are really in line with kind of the movements they've been making throughout the years that have brought them success, as well as some of just, considerations from what's been going on in the industry and kind of movements that their competitors have been making. So the first one is looking at research on how a subscription model might impact their business. This is really as a result of, the movements that Panera has been making that we talked about earlier. Just considering how an even revenue stream of having a monthly subscription might benefit the company would be a consideration that Starbucks might want to make, just looking at certain markets that might be interested in that, just so that Panera doesn't surpass, Starbucks eventually. Even though Starbucks has a big emphasis on their premium coffee, this could still be a direction that they could look to go. Integrating automation with a loyalty program. So they already have their loyalty program mobile app in place. If they could partner with the idea of, like a grab and go type situation that Panera kind of already has, and Starbucks has to some extent, that might be valuable. And this also ties in with kind of the movements around COVID-19 and how that shaped the way we look at kind of consumer behavior, especially with consumer goods. So, having a station where there's no contact required might be something that Starbucks should consider. And I think they already are when they plan to open their stores back up. Continuing to expand internationally, obviously this has brought them so much success, and Starbucks is really becoming a well-known brand name throughout the world. So, obviously since they're looking to open a store every 15 hours in China, continuing to expand is a really good idea for them, and looking to move into new markets and doing their cultural research so that they can do so would be a recommendation. Obviously, new drinks and flavors. It's really easy to see consumer behavior. When Starbucks comes out with new drinks for the summer, for the fall, obviously they know their target market, and they know people are very attracted and looking forward to the new drinks that Starbucks often releases. So obviously working in that direction where kind of the food science and R&D plays a big role would be a good idea. And then continuing to differentiate themselves by their premium product. The whole basis of Starbucks is, okay, we make you, handmade, customized drinks that are expensive, but obviously people find value in, right? So somehow leveraging that, always keeping that kind of as the basis as they consider these other things would be key. And Starbucks obviously knows that. So those would be the future strategy recommendations for Starbucks.